the 13th Abbasid Khalifa, who had arranged and contracted the killing of Al-Musta'in. I want to just mention something to you. It states that Al-Mustansir would only last until the year 248 AH in the month of Shawwal. Okay, this is after Eid, when he would die at 26 years of age, having been poisoned. All right, Al-Musta'in was the one that had him poisoned. Al-Musta'in had his own brother poisoned. He was then killed in 252 AH. After him, the oath of allegiance was given to Al-Mu'taz Billah, the 13th Abbasid Khalifa, who had arranged and contracted the killing of Al-Musta'in. So you have people, their own family, killing each other because of the rule of the Abbasids, because people wanted to rule. Al-Mu'taz Billah was killed in the year 255 AH by forces within the military and also the royal household. He was 23 years of age. After this, the one to receive the oath of allegiance was Muhammad al-Muhtadi, one of those who watched the death, and the son of al-Wathiq. Al-Muhtadi became the 14th Khalifa. Al-Muhtadi was killed in the year 256 AH at 38 years of age. After his time came Al-Mu'tamid al-Allah, the 15th Abbasid Khalifa. So you see from this time that the tribulations begin. From 257 to 295, we're looking at these years. It was at this time that Al-Mu'tamid had problems in his reign and attempted to keep his reign by giving lavish payouts to people in his sphere of influence and the governors and army. The pitched battles between the Muslims and the Byzantine troops continue as far away as today's Turkey and as close as the Tigris River and the Mediterranean. The Qarmatian in the year 278 AH appeared in Al-Kufa and used horrible violence against the populace. There was also the Zenj rebellion, but it was put down. Al-Mu'tamid was weak and was replaced by his brother Al-Muwaffiq, the 16th Abbasid Khalifa, until 278 AH when he declared his son Al-Mu'tadid the new Khalifa and 16th Abbasid ruler. Al-Mu'tamid died in 278 AH, and Al-Mu'tadid was different to other kings before in that he forbade the sale of philosophy books and rhetoric. He was harsh against it and also ran astrology and speakeasies underground. Okay, during his time and before, you had some Muslims that had opened taverns. These were places where people would go to drink and discuss the philosophical ideas of the day, the precursor of today's pubs. So people would go there, Muslims, big hat, fuzzy beard, big robe. They would go there and sit down, and remember, alcohol had already been distilled by 900 AH, by 900 AD, by 859 or 860. So people had spirits back then, and people were drinking distilled alcohol. And by doing that, they would become drunk. Now the ulama, when they got wind of this, began to fight against it. And because the ulama were actually damaging public property, the public property was believed to be under the suzerainty of the Khalifa. And so by doing that, that was considered a federal offense. And so ulama went to jail and were killed for burning down taverns, for attacking pubs, for lashing people who were drunk, and for pouring out alcohol. They were beaten and also tortured because of it. So when you look at all of this and you put things in their proper perspective, you say to yourself, Subhanallah, how could this have happened? So Al-Mu'tadid, what made him different to other kings is he forbade the sale of philosophy books and rhetoric, was harsh against it, and also astrology. In his time and before, astrology had popularity. Al-Mu'tadid drove astrologers underground in a massive way. Speakeasies, he closed them down. And whenever he used to hear about them being burned down, he would do nothing. So Mu'tadid was a bit more amicable towards things than some of the other rulers were. In 280 AH, there was a massive earthquake that killed 150,000 people in one day in a place called Dabil in Iraq. Al-Mu'tadid was victorious in the year 283 AH over the Khawarij in Arabia. Al-Mu'tadid died in the year 289 AH, and the 17th Khalifa of the Abbasid Empire after him was Al-Muqtafi. Now, something is important I forgot to mention of Al-Muwaffiq. Al-Muwaffiq had to declare his son Al-Mu'tadid the new Khalifa because he was dying of elephantitis. He was dying of elephantitis, which is a degenerative disease that will cause abnormal deformation. And so before Al-Muwaffiq died, he put his son Al-Mu'tadid in power. So this was one of the few times where the Khalifas, if you look at the history of the Abbasids and many of the Umayyads, actually died in his own bed of the closest thing that we have to natural causes, because he passed it to his son. Now after Al-Muqtafi came in, 290 AH saw the growth of the Qarmatian, a particular branch of the Khawarij, and their takeover of areas under the leadership of Zakrawayh. In the year 295 AH, there was the death of Al-Muqtafi, who was 21 years of age. After his death, the Khilafah went to the 18th Abbasid ruler, Al-Muqtadir, his brother, who was only 13 years old during the time. Now the Qarmatian Khawarij at one point actually took over Masjid al-Haram and Masjid al-Nabawi in the areas around it, and burnt the curtains, as they did in the 1920s when they took over. This particular sect of Khawarij burnt the curtains as they did in 1925, damaged Masjid al-Nabawi, and removed the black stone from the recess of the wall of the Kaaba and took it to Iraq for some reason. Why they did that, historically, I'm not able to find out why they did that, but it was done. And they had to be defeated, crushed, and clawed back, and they controlled the area for a number of years. So you'll sometimes find people that say, well, wait a minute. There's a cult in control of the Haram, Mecca and Medina today. How can they be wrong? Because why would Allah put them there? Well, for the same reason that Allah put pagans in control of it for over 1,000 years. And the same reason why the Qarmatian, the Mu'tazila, the Qarmatian were in control of it for all those years before. If we start holding the position that they must be right because they're in charge of Mecca and Medina, then that means the Prophet ﷺ had no business rising up against them. That's ridiculous, and no human being with an ounce of shrapnel of gray matter in their head would say anything like that. So we have to use our thinking caps when we look into these matters, because the Qarmatian controlled those areas. Now during these times, we had Abu Abdullah al-Dhuhli, who was called Amir al-Mu'mineen in Hadith, and Yahya ibn Mu'adh al-Razi, who died in 258 AH, Al-Hasan ibn Ali, one of the 12 Imams of the Twelvers, and they hold him as infallible. And he is the father of their awaited Imam Muhammad. He died in this year. Another man by the name of Hunayn ibn Ishaq, who was considered the doctor of Iraq, he died in the year 260 AH. He was considered the father of optics and optic technology. He also wrote greatly on the sciences of chemistry and other areas of medicine. Remember, this is around 900 AD, 880. There is no Europe at this time. There's no European Union. There is no Tesco. There is no Sainsbury's. There is no Sears. There's no Walmart. There are no street lights. There's no indoor plumbing. These people are in charge of the Ummah. They're the people that are your role models. Not these people with their hair teased up and looking like crooks and villains. Not these people. These are the people that are your role models, because they were the people that brought about massive change in a short period of time. And look at the tyranny that they were under, and they still had this amount of creativity. Could you imagine if they'd been left alone a little bit more and hadn't been put under so much pressure, what they would have been like? Now we come to also some who had died in this year. Abu Bakr al-Athram. Abu Bakr al-Athram, rahimahullah, is one of the students of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. He is known on record to have been tested and have memorized 700,000 ahadith. He's one of the mujtahidun al-mutlaqoon in the method of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. 700,000 ahadith. Abu Zur'a al-Razi memorized 700,000 as well. Another that died during this time, Abu Yazid al-Bistami, the great Imam of Ihsan. the great knowledgeable scholar of Ihsan. Muslim ibn al-Hajjaj, in 261AH, he is one of the students of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, having memorized 400,000 ahadith. 400,000 ahadith. He is more strict in his collection of ahadith. Imam al-Nawawi, in his introduction to Imam Muslim's commentary on the hadith, says that every hadith in the Sahih of Imam Muslim is mutawatir, with the exception of a few words. Every hadith in the Sahih of Imam Muslim, in the Jami' al-Sahih of Imam Muslim, is mutawatir with the exception of a few words. So, Imam Muslim, I want to make sure that in your mind, that there's no doubt about him. That these people, there's no dispute about them in your mind. Abu Zur'a al-Razi, who died 264 Hijri, another one of Imam Ahmad's students at the 700,000 mark. At the 700,000 mark. Ibrahim ibn Hani, Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Askari, who is believed by 12er Shia to be the Imam to return as the Mahdi. Some people believe that he will be, the 12ers believe that he is in the cave in Samarra and he will return as the 12th Imam, the Mahdi. Right? And again, it goes back to our theological difference with them. They believe that the Mahdi comes from the line of Al-Hussein. We say it's from the line of Al-Hasan. So we already are not on the same page. Right? Another death during this time, Imam Muhammad ibn Sahnun, the great Maliki scholar, died in 265 AH. Muhammad ibn Shuja' al-Thalji, the scholar of the Hanafis in Iraq. He was one of the few that was not tainted with the Mu'tazila creed. He was one of the few scholars of the Hanafis that had not been tainted with their creed. Dawood ibn Ali al-Asbahani, who's the founder of the Zahiri school, who studied with Abu Thawr, Ibn Rahawayh, and Imam al-Shafi'i, but without being licensed, proclaimed himself an absolute mujtahid. He died in 270 AH. Dawood ibn Ali al-Asbahani is the classic case of the DIY mujtahid. He had been in a number of classes with each of the imams, and after that point, declares himself an absolute mujtahid. If you look under the biographical layers under Imam Shafi'i's students who he licensed and who he gave, his name does not appear in there. Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah, when asked about him, said, do not enter into his presence. He didn't say, don't learn from him. Don't take knowledge from him. Don't even enter into his presence. Does that make you understand how serious this matter is? Don't even enter into his presence. Ibn Imad quotes him as saying, don't enter into his presence in the 4th volume of his Shadarat al-Dhahab. Another one of those who died during this time was Hanbal ibn Ishaq, who was a cousin and student of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. Also Abu al-Hasan al-Maymuni, one of the students of Imam Ahmad, died in 274 AH. Abu Bakr al-Marwazi also died during the same day. Abu Dawood as-Sijistani, who died in 275 AH. Imam Abu Dawood as-Sijistani, rahimahullah, is the writer of the Sunan. He is who we generally know as the Sunan of Abu Dawood. I want to make this very clear because it is often something that's misunderstood. The reason why you'll find the ulama putting the Sihah Sitta in the order of Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, Nisa'i is because that's the order of virtue that the scholars hold them in. So you will find them, Bukhari, the student of Imam Ahmad, Muslim, a student of Imam Ahmad, but in the second category. Third is Imam Abu Dawood as-Sijistani, who on record was recorded to have memorized 500,000 ahadith. He came from a section in Afghanistan not far from today's Herat and studied hadith. He had a magnificent memory. And he said at the introduction of his Sunan that every hadith that is within this book is authentic unless I tell you otherwise. Every book that's here is authentic. And they said that he resembled Imam Ahmad rahimahullah so much because he considered the learning of hadith to be connected with even the gestures of the teacher. So even Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah, even his gestures, Imam Abu Dawood even took on how he gestured, how he spoke. His pitch, how he would raise the pitch of his voice when he spoke and lower his pitch.